Tama was a washed-up hero who got nerfed into a little kitty cat. However, his life changed when an elf mommy discovered he was overpowered and adopted him so he can clap her kitty red. It all started when Tama suddenly found himself in a labyrinth. He was confused since the last thing he remembered was being isekai'd by a demon in his previous life. Suddenly, a status window popped up and he discovered he had reincarnated as a behemoth, an S-rank monster. The news crushed him because in his past life, he'd been a proud knight who fought for good. And now he was a creature everyone feared and hated. However, when he reached a lake and saw his reflection, he froze. Because instead of a terrifying monster, he was a cute little kitty. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, an adventurer named Arya, whose milkers could feed all men of culture, suited up and headed out. As for Tama, he soon realized he was insanely strong, and he tore through monsters, devoured them, and gained their abilities as he went. Around the same time, Tama explored the labyrinth and stumbled on a treasure chest. And that got him excited because he'd never found one back when he was a knight. When he opened it, he found a crystal, but as he admired it, he realized it was a trap, and he was instantly teleported to another place. He reappeared on top of an earth dragon, an even stronger S-rank monster that wasted no time attacking him for interrupting its nap. Tama fired an attack straight from its mouth, but the dragon shrugged it off and countered. He saved himself from getting isekai'd again by activating Iron Body, but the hit still left him badly injured. The dragon went in for another blow, but Tama struck back and blasted himself away like a rocket. Eventually he crashed, bleeding out and convinced he was done for, but that's when Arya arrived and rushed to save him. A few hours later, he woke up to the largest melons he had ever seen.
She's pretty, SpongeBob.
And seeing Arya, he thought this must be the blessing of the anime gods. She patted him, and he thought that she must think he was an ordinary cat, or she would have dumped his behind in the labyrinth. Following that, she served him food, and while he licked up his food using a proper tonguing technique that only legends understand, Arya left home. Just then, Tama thought about how she had been good to him even when he was almost dead, so he vowed to make her his master and protector. He quickly followed her and boarded her boat without her knowledge. She headed back to the labyrinth, and Tama sneaked after her, surprised that she was going there alone. Arya soon came across some goblins and slew them in an instant, surprising Tama, who mentally acknowledged that she was good, but her bazookas seemed to be slowing her. Another goblin appeared and unleashed a fire spell that almost turned her into a barbecue, but Tama jumped in to save her. He reasoned that he couldn't use his skills here, or Arya would discover his real identity, so he decided to leave some scratches on the goblin's face instead, pushing the goblin down the stairs. She was surprised to see him, and on her way back, she placed him on her pillows to reward him for saving her back in the labyrinth. Afterward, Arya headed to the Adventurers Guild, but as she walked in, she met an ugly moron named Kazman who gave a crappy Riz line before asking her if she had made up her mind about joining his party. Arya politely declined the offer, but the dude tried to touch her, promising to take good care of her. However, Tama bit his fingers and left some scratches on his face to teach him a lesson. Kazman got angry and drew his sword immediately. But this transformer named Anna intervened, and Kazman ran off before his rear hole got violated. Arya thanked Anna for his help, and Anna, noticing Tama, mentioned how cute he was. Arya stated that he had saved her twice and officially declared him as her pet. Following that, she took him to a corner to tickle his pickle, which made Tama almost lose gallons. Tama took it further by playing with his tiny sausage, making Arya jealous, so she told him she wouldn't let him in the bath with her if he continued doing this. Later in the bath, while Tama observed the work of art in front of him, Arya began thinking and asked him if he thought she would ever be strong, as a long time ago when she was young, demons had invaded her village, but a sword saint appeared and rescued them. And since then, she had dreamed of becoming like the sword saint one day. Arya got to the guild the next day, and when Anna tried to warn her to escape immediately, Kazman appeared with an order from the Baron to eliminate the filthy cat that put grid lines on his face. Arya tried to beg, but Kazman turned it into a challenge, saying that if Arya beat him in a duel, he would free the cat, but if she lost, then she would have to marry him. This was very risky, but after a moment of thinking, Arya accepted the challenge. On the battleground as they prepared to fight, Kazman arrogantly thought that it would be unfair of him to have such an easy win, so he called to the crowd for anyone who was willing to join Arya in fighting. Nobody answered, but Tama stepped out and angrily meowed at Kazman, so Kazman mocked him and agreed to let him help his master anyway. As soon as the fight started, Tama ran toward Kazman head-on immediately, surprising Arya, who thought this was too dangerous for the little cat. Kazman tried to slay him in one swing, but Tama dodged. Then Arya, trying to rescue her cat, immediately used her acceleration skill, but Kazman easily dodged her attack and left a scar on her body. He attacked her and quickly began to overwhelm her in an exchange that made Tama wonder whether to use his skill or not, because he feared his identity could be revealed. However, Kazman knocked Arya to the ground, and when he almost struck her with his sword, Tama quickly activated Iron Body and jumped in to save her, shocking Kazman as his sword broke. Tama then blew him off with a scream, defeating him. Everyone was shocked and wondered what had just happened. So Tama thought this was the end because his identity as a behemoth had been revealed. But Anna suggested that he might be an elemental cat, shocking Tama. Then Arya was declared the winner. The next day, Tama woke up on the softest pillows ever, and seeing Arya, he got frisky and decided to lick her ears, instantly sending her to ecstasy land. However, he jumped off, but she began to beg him for more, shocking him. Following that, Arya took him to a blacksmith named Vulcan, and seeing how cute he was, Vulcan placed him on her chesticles, which instantly made him excited because he was fulfilling the American dream. Tama then told Vulcan that she wanted her to make body armor for Tama because she had decided to start taking him on her adventures. So Vulcan took Tama's measurements and got to work immediately. The next day, Vulcan finished the armor, and Tama was excited to try it on, surprised that she was able to make it in one night. However, concerning Arya's sword, Vulcan complained that she wasn't able to make it as she would love, which made Arya sad because she felt she didn't know how to wield the swords Vulcan made for her properly, leading to them always snapping while she used them. To solve this, Vulcan came up with an idea that they should form a temporary party so she could watch Arya wield her sword and find the best way to make a sword for her. Vulcan joined on the next adventure and began demolishing the monsters like they were a piece of cake, surprising Arya and Tama, who couldn't believe she was that strong. Then an orc suddenly appeared, and Vulcan told Arya it was her turn to fight. So Arya stepped up like she got this, but when she charged at the monster, her attack was so weak that it almost sent her to the Shadow Realm. However, Arya jumped in with his iron body to block the orc's attack, and Arya dealt the final slash, isekaiing the monster. Having observed her technique, Vulcan told Arya what her weakness was, and she was excited to know Vulcan could find a way of making her stronger. Hearing this, Vulcan suggested they head to the next floor, which had the perfect monsters for her condition. However, upon reaching the next floor, they encountered some D-class monsters called Ropers, shocking Tama because he knew these monsters were notorious and would do anything to squeeze melons. Tama reluctantly stepped forward and charged at the Ropers, but they soon knocked down one of her swords, leaving her open. She charged in with the other sword, and Vulcan observed that she became faster thanks to holding only one sword. This got Vulcan thinking, but not long after, Arya's sword snapped in two, leaving her open. Vulcan immediately passed her daggers to Arya, who took them and isekai'd one of the monsters in one move. Arya headed toward the next immediately and became faster than she ever was as she dodged the Roper's attacks. Seeing this, Vulcan concluded that knives were more her thing than swords, and Arya managed to cut off all the monster's tentacles, but the naughty monster spilled its sus milk on her body instead. This made her angry because only Tama should be spilling his creamy juice on her, so she charged in and sliced the monster into pieces. Tama was shocked that Arya had unlocked a new skill. However, he quickly turned toward the Roper to steal its skills. But when he tried to meet Arya, he saw her still stabbing the dead monster, angry that it had left its milk on her. Following that, having realized that long swords weren't for her, she decided to make the daggers her primary weapon, and Vulcan told her she could now go to the deeper areas of the labyrinth. But before that, they decided to take a break. They headed to a safe section in the labyrinth where the Philosopher's Stone was. This stone was said to keep monsters away, but seeing it, Arya suddenly remembered the demons that invaded her village. Afterward, the girls decided to engage in an intense sauna battle with their bouncy floaties in plain sight. Arya asked Vulcan about her usual party, and Vulcan replied that they split up because some of their members got frisky and got pregnant. Vulcan then warned Arya to watch her tail because elemental cats were capable of crossbreeding with other creatures, and when Tama grew older, he could get in the mood one day and pin her down for some plot development. Shockingly, Arya was excited like she had been waiting to hear the news, and she carried Tama immediately, wishing that he could grow up already. After that, they continued adventuring and faced a Minotaur. Arya confidently charged toward the monster, and after delivering some blows, the Minotaur got angry and smashed against the labyrinth walls, causing heavy rocks to fall in Vulcan's direction. But Tama quickly jumped in to blow the rocks away, saving her. Then Arya launched an attack again, stabbing the monster in the chest and isekaiing it. Later that night, they returned to the guild and celebrated their win. While at it, Vulcan offered to join Arya's party so she could help in adventures and personally take care of Tama's armor. Arya agreed to this, and they formed a party, but later that night, they gave Tama an after-party by sandwiching him between their melons as they slept. At that moment, Tama received a notification about a software update to his second form, but he refused to accept it because he feared this might turn him into the actual form of a behemoth, which would ultimately lead to him separating from his master because everyone now considered him a monster. The next day, on their way out, they saw some old fools maltreating a young girl for bumping into them. And while the fools considered selling her off for some cash, Arya appeared at the scene with Tama. Seeing Tama, they realized that this was the elemental cat that had almost finished Kasman off and immediately ran off with their tails between their legs. Arya attended to the young girl named Lala and took her to a church to put her in the care of a nun. Tama was surprised to realize that Arya had brought other youngins to the church to be cared for, and he became more determined to do all he could to protect her and the one she loved. Later that evening, the party went to the guild, and Anna congratulated Arya as he announced her promotion to a C rank. While they were excited, they suddenly heard some chaos outside and wondered what was causing the fuss. Anna revealed that there had been recent disappearances of people in a nearby town, which was rumored to be caused by demons. Hearing this, Tama wondered if the demons were planning something sinister, and Arya asked Anna for more info because this meant a lot to her as someone who had witnessed an onslaught of demons before. Vulcan warned that it was dangerous, but when she saw that Arya was relentless, she offered to join her. Just then, Anna revealed that they would be accompanied by some knights, and while he was still speaking, a young man appeared and introduced himself as one of the knights who would accompany them. His name was Cedric. Everyone was shocked to see him because he was the son of the Duke, but Tama knew him much more than that. The thing is, several years ago, a terrible battle occurred between humans and demons known as Ragnarok, but mankind eventually won at the hands of a young boy who was now called the Grand Mage. Cedric was one of the heroes who fought and earned glory in that battle. Now that Cedric was standing before them, offering to assist. Meanwhile, Arya asked if their group wasn't too small to face the threat of demons, but Anna told her to worry because Cedric was who he thought he was. He was him. Later the next day, while they prepared to leave, Tama realized that Arya was nervous and tried to cheer her up by tickling her. Arya loved this and kissed him in return to thank him, shocking him, but he managed to keep his naughty thoughts together and was determined to protect her at all costs. They set out on the journey, and while Arya and her party introduced themselves to the other group, the girls found Tama cute and almost began to fight over who to touch him. Suddenly, their chariot stopped, and they realized they had been crossed by some monsters. One of the group dudes immediately stepped out and slaughtered the demons before they even knew it, shocking Arya and Vulcan. They wondered what skill the guy just used, and when they realized that it was just brute strength, they were more impressed because this showed that the Ragnarok heroes were really powerful. When they got to the mysterious village later that night, they were welcomed by one of the villagers who reported that demons had been yoinking the citizens, and when they set some knights to go find out what was happening, those knights too were yoinked and didn't return. When the whole group settled, Arya asked the Ragnarok heroes why they became knights, and each of them had one thing in common. They were broke and had debts to pay. However, Cedric's case was different as he became a knight because he had been rejected at home for liking meat instead of cakes and melons. And since he had nothing else to do, he became a knight. They decided to have their bath after this, and things got messy quickly in the girls' bath. And while Arya made happy noises, the men of culture on the other side got in the mood. So they found themselves heading towards the girls' bath to peek, except Cedric, who ate meats as a side hustle. However, Tama blocked the depraved idiots and blasted them back into their bath with a scream. Following that, they set out to the labyrinth, and as they entered, the Demon Lord watched them through an orb, excited that dinner was ready and that it was time to build their power and put their plan into motion. The party soon met up with some C-class demons and started fighting them. Seeing that they were getting overwhelmed, Tama considered blasting them off with his scream, but he thought it would only buy them some time, not eliminate the demons. So he decided to try a new skill and pierce through them with his water lasers, eliminating them all at once. The demons watching through the orb were shocked, wondering what skill that was. The Demon Lord considered it an elemental cat initially, but he thought otherwise when he observed that Tama was more powerful than that. However, he made up his mind to eliminate Tama when the time came. Meanwhile, Arya was amused that her pet was this strong and wished he could use that strength to hold her down for a rigorous clapping. The party continued their mission, and after crossing into a different chamber, the Demon Lord appeared and introduced himself as Beryl, one of the remnants of the demons that were eliminated at Ragnarok. Cedric asked if this was a revenge on the village, but Beryl replied that the village was just a speck in their grand plan. Beryl then summoned powerful monsters, shocking the party. However, they charged in anyway, and seeing Tama also approaching, Beryl trapped him in an enclosed barrier, separating him from the rest. Then the monsters began attacking, but Tama managed to dodge an attack, cutting a monster's arm in the process. But he was shocked when he saw that the arm regenerated immediately. Realizing that the monsters were more than they could bear, Cedric stepped out and drew his sword. He then imbued his sword with magic before charging toward the monsters and slaying them in one swing. Beryl was shocked because only the Grand Mage ought to be capable of using dark magic. But Cedric just smiled and said this would be fun as he prepared to unleash another attack. Meanwhile, Tama launched a rock attack, but it didn't do any damage, and the monsters started chasing him immediately as he tried to escape. He thought that he could easily defeat them if only he upgraded to his second form, but he feared that might be the end of his dream of clapping his master in the future. So he decided to use his only option, Fire Blast. He set the monsters ablaze immediately and sent them to hell to continue the rest. Beryl saw this and became angry, but then Arya and Vulcan sneaked an attack on him. However, he dodged their attacks and called them weak, but they suddenly covered him in smoke, blurring his vision. Then Arya charged in at full acceleration to stab his chest. Beryl thought this was one of those weak attacks, but he was shocked when a golden light suddenly shone and the dagger pierced through. However, as he fell, he managed to leave a cut on Arya, and she collapsed too in pain. When Tama saw her wound, he realized she had been poisoned by Beryl's dagger, and Beryl died, laughing as he said that mankind was doomed to fall as soon as they regained their power. But Tama wondered who he meant by they. The party carried Arya and rushed back to the village, but when the doctor examined her, he stated that Beryl would not survive and only had half a day at best to live. Vulcan asked if there was no antidote to save her, but the doctor said that no one had been able to neutralize the dragon's toxin. However, he said there might be a way to save her. They would need the eye of an earth dragon. Hearing this, Cedric said they needed another way because they didn't have the time to start searching for dragons. But Tama just left silently, thinking about how Arya once saved him too, and he was determined to save her too, even if it cost his life. He returned to cave he had escaped from the other day and told the earth dragon he was there to destroy him. The earth dragon got angry at his arrogance and launched an attack immediately, but Tama dodged. Realizing that he could not defeat the dragon in his current form, he said farewell to his master as he activated his second form and transformed into a behemoth. However, after a few attacks, the earth dragon bit Tama and got cocky, thinking it had already won, but it didn't know that this was Tama's plan, so it could lower its guard. At that moment, Tama struck with his tail and isekai'd the dragon instantly. Then Tama shockingly felt his mana draining as he returned to his first form. But he didn't have time to figure out what just happened. He quickly stored the dragon away in his storage and headed back to the village. Meanwhile, as Arya writhed in pain with Vulcan crying, thinking this was the final goodbye, they suddenly heard a thump on the ground outside and ran out to see a defeated earth dragon with Tama lying exhausted on it. Without any question, they quickly got the eye and used it for Arya, while Tama hoped she got better. Meanwhile, in her coma, Arya dreamt of when the demons ravaged her village seeking the Philosopher's Stone. When she tried escaping with it, the demons crossed her, dropping her to her knees in terror. But then, an elemental cat came to her rescue, and she had fallen in love with cats ever since. Arya started recovering shortly after this moment, and everyone was excited that she survived. After a few days, Arya was still recovering and had to stay in bed, so Tama used this opportunity to assess his skills in the labyrinth. He realized that his second form was just a free trial, and he couldn't use it again, but he was grateful that he was able to save his master and still return to his normal form. He then decided to try the new skills he had obtained from the Earth Dragon, and after slaying a monster cheaply with dragon fangs, a strange girl suddenly appeared. He wondered what a maiden was doing there, but the girl seemed to know he was a behemoth and had been looking for him. She asked why he was back in his cat form and attempted to pounce on him, asking for his body. But Tama got scared and ran into hiding, wondering who this creepy jerk was. Tama returned home and got comfy in Arya's blossoms, but he kept wondering why the creep he saw at the labyrinth seemed familiar. A few days later, Arya dressed Tama like Cinderella and took him out on a picnic. During the picnic, Arya revealed that she heard that when the Earth Dragon's corpse was found, Tama was also there, severely wounded. This made her terrible because despite her desire to be stronger, she had always been the one always needed to be saved. She added that, unlike her, the Sword Saint single-handedly saved the whole village when demons attacked, and because of this, Arya had left her village, determined not to return until she was stronger. However, she was still as weak as ever and could not even save her own self, not to mention saving others. Hearing this, Tama tried to encourage her by reminding her that she had unalived Beryl, and she thanked him for making her feel better. Some days later, Arya sold the spoils they got from isekaiing Beryl, and instantly became rich from it, so she ordered upgraded equipment from Vulcan. Afterwards, they headed to the labyrinth again. But this time, Arya was nervous because she had not been on an adventure in a while due to her injury and feared that she had lost her touch. Tama decided to buff her and Vulcan up to protect them from damage when faced with the labyrinth monsters. A few moments later, a monster appeared, and Arya charged toward it immediately, surprising Vulcan and Tama that she was still very fast, even without using her acceleration skill. Arya thanked Vulcan for the new equipment she had given her, but Vulcan deflected the compliment, saying it was all thanks to Tama's buff. Just then, the creepy girl appeared, terrifying Tama immediately. But Vulcan and Arya got curious about who she was, asking her for her name and where she was from. The girl didn't respond because all she wanted was Tama's pickle and her giggles. However, Arya said no because the cat is too young for that. And seeing how Tama cuddled up in Arya's Silicon Valley, the strange girl thought that Arya must be so powerful to have tamed a monster like Tama. She calmed down, and then Arya asked her if she wanted to come with them, to which the girl agreed on the condition that she would get the chance to be with Tama that way. On their way back home, Arya and Vulcan thought of a name to give the strange girl since she seemed not to know her name, and called her Stella, which she gladly accepted because Tama liked it. Later that night, they all took their bath, and Stella was excited to be bathing in water for the first time. Afterwards, Arya started bathing Tama, which instantly made Stella jealous and desire to do the same. But Arya told her no because she was the only one permitted to do so. Later in the room, while they all slept, Stella communicated with Tama using telepathy, and he was shocked that she could do that. Stella told him he shouldn't be surprised because they had spoken together before he slaughtered her the other day. Tama was shocked and wondered what she was talking about, only for her to reveal that she was the Earth Dragon, shocking him. Stella then told him that, as the Earth Dragon, she always thought she was the strongest since no monster could defeat him. But that changed when he fought her and defeated her. But using her reincarnation skill, the Earth Dragon was reborn as a baddie with big oranges and became determined to find the monster who slaughtered her. Tama asked if she came to get revenge, but she told him no. All she wanted was his creamy juice. She tried pouncing on him, frightening him, but Arya grabbed him and warned her to stay away from her pet. Stella decided to withdraw that night, but confessed to Tama that she loved him using telepathy. However, Tama was scared that they had brought a monster home. The next morning, they all had breakfast together, and Stella ate like she had been starved for centuries, devouring everything in sight. Through telepathy, she asked Tama what Arya really was because all she had seen so far was how kind she treated everyone. When Tama explained that Arya was his master, Stella was shocked. Just then, Tama begged Stella not to tell Arya that he was a behemoth, or she would see him as a monster. Stella smirked and told Tama that he would have to clap her cheeks like Johnny Sins if he wanted her mouth shut. Tama got scared immediately, but Stella laughed, saying she was joking and that her pride would only let her win over Tama's heart fair and square. They headed around town and Stella expressed how unbelievable it was that Arya had been able to tame Tama as her pet. Tama understood her mindset because monsters valued strength above all else, so Stella saw Arya as someone amazing for accomplishing such a feat. Just then, Arya suggested that they go on an adventure, and Stella got excited immediately, ready to explore the labyrinth. They decided to take her to Vulcan's armory to get some armor first, but Stella ended up wearing armor that made her look more like a stripper than a warrior. When Arya asked about her unprotected hands, Stella transformed them, revealing dragon-like limbs and even a tail. Not knowing she was a real dragon, the girls assumed she was a dragon newt, a human who could transform parts of their body into dragon-like features. Stella then went to choose her weapons, but instead of picking from the front display like a normal person, she walked to the back and picked up a huge shield that looked like it weighed a ton. Vulcan was shocked to see her lift it one-handed like it was made of paper. And Tama was even more surprised to see her focus on defense instead of offense. Stella explained that ever since her defeat to him, she had prioritized her defense, adding that her loss to him had taught her both love and strength. After grabbing the shield, she picked up a giant sword, and with that, they were ready to begin their adventure. They entered the labyrinth, and while the others moved cautiously like reasonable people, Stella charged ahead like a maniac, looking for enemies to destroy. She found some goblins lounging around and, without even using her weapons, slashed them apart with her dragon claws like they were butter. When one goblin tried to backstab her, thinking it had a chance, she cut it to pieces with her sword in one swing. Tama felt a bit of fear, hoping she wouldn't lose herself to a dark path and become a murder hobo. But Arya chose to see the bright side and encouraged everyone to support Stella whenever she fought recklessly. Stella expressed how much she wanted to face tougher opponents because the goblins were too easy. Arya agreed, but asked her to be careful not to get herself killed. Stella assured her that she would be fine and could handle anything. They then descended to a lower level to face some orcs, and Stella easily rammed through them with her shield like a freight train, sending them flying.
That's what makes you pathetic!
What bloodthirsty shield work.
Even though they were impressed by her strength and how easily she demolished the monsters, they worried she might not be ready for the next level since she was acting too reckless. There, they encountered a roper, and while the others tried to warn Stella about how dangerous it was, she rushed at the monster without hesitation. Tama explained that this monster was every girl's nightmare or fantasy, depending on how degenerate they were, because it used its tentacles to attack and humiliate women. Stella charged anyway, but she ended up getting caught in its tentacles and sprayed by the monster's cream all over her body. The substance drove her wild immediately, awakening her dragon instincts and causing her to fight recklessly like a berserker. Seeing the danger and realizing things were about to get out of hand, Tama used his own roper skills to summon tentacles, pulled the girls back to safety, and defeated the monster using high-pressure water that sent it straight to the afterlife. Through telepathy, he scolded Stella for losing her composure and almost getting herself killed. Stella admitted that she still had trauma from her defeat to him and couldn't help but panic. Tama reassured her not to be afraid because he would protect her no matter what. Hearing those words, Stella melted, saying that hearing them from the one she loved almost made her lose control and leak from her floodgates gates. Later, Stella told Vulcan that she wanted to learn how to use her weapons better and become stronger. This gave Vulcan hope that their group could become a strong party capable of tackling tougher challenges. Hearing the word party reminded Stella of all the times she had fought against adventurers as the Earth Dragon, and she expressed her excitement to now be part of one instead of fighting against them. Meanwhile, Arya approached Tama, saying she wanted to make babies with him and expressing how much pleasure she felt when his tentacles wrapped around her during the fight. Tama became flustered immediately, worried about his tiny willy and what Arya was trying to do to him. But Vulcan stepped in to stop their nonsense before the whole scene became rated. They refocused on strategy and decided that Stella would act as their tank due to her massive weapons and even more massive melons that could distract enemies. Following that, they faced more orcs in the labyrinth, and just like a proper tank, Stella took the front line to draw enemy attacks and protect the party. However, she got too excited and left everyone behind as she charged forward. Tama gave the others some buffs to keep them safe, and they rushed after her before the idiot got herself killed. Later, they stumbled upon a hot spring and decided to take a dip to relax after all the fighting. Tama promised not to peek, acting like an honorable knight with morals, but Arya pulled him in anyway and used her body to wash him, rubbing her chesticles all over him. Stella and Vulcan watched in jealousy, wanting the same attention from the cute cat. Eventually, Stella had had enough of watching and confronted Arya, claiming that since Arya was weaker, Tama deserved someone stronger like herself. Arya refused to back down, saying Tama preferred her elf charms and massive personality. They started arguing, sandwiching Tama between their chests in a battle of the melons, and the poor guy ended up getting launched into the sky like a rocket from the pressure. Later, they brought Stella to Anna at the guild to register her as an adventurer so she could officially join the party. Before completing the registration, Anna introduced someone to them. It was Rice, one of the Ragnarok heroes, who had come to ask Arya for a personal request. He needed her party to protect some precious cargo he had acquired. Vulcan explained that she couldn't leave her shop unattended for long trips, but Arya understood and said it was fine. Stella asked what the cargo was, curious about what could be so important, and Rice brought them to his private storage to show them. There, he revealed the Earth Dragon skeleton he had bought at an auction, shocking everyone. Stella stood there frozen because she was staring at her own skeleton from when Tama had isekai'd her. However, instead of getting terrified, she started twitching as she felt tingly inside after seeing her own corpse like some kind of weirdo. Before Arya started her mission, Anna handed Arya her new badge as a B-rank adventurer, congratulating her on the promotion. The next morning, Tama and the crew set out on a journey to protect Stella's precious cargo for Rice. They created a camp for the night to rest after traveling all day. Rice handed Arya some beautiful flowers, But unlike other creepy old men who tried to flirt with her, he didn't attempt to rizz up Arya and stayed loyal to his wife. Arya asked Rice why he had brought the dragon's corpse with them, and he informed them that his merchant friend told him a big war was coming soon. It reminded Tama of what the demon had told them before dying, and it made him worry about what sinister plans were in motion. That night, while they were sleeping peacefully, Tama woke up feeling uneasy, like something was off. When he looked outside, the landscape had changed into a forest, and only the road and their camp remained untouched. Rice hurried him to get everyone moving immediately, telling them to ride the carriage away before things got worse. He explained that a new labyrinth had just formed here out of nowhere, something completely unheard of and extremely dangerous. After escaping to safety, they set up a new camp, and Rice asked if they would like to explore the labyrinth since they were already there. They agreed because new labyrinths were every adventurer's dream, filled with unexplored treasures and monsters. When they entered, Tama buffed their defense just in case things got dangerous, but it made Stella reckless immediately, and she charged in by herself like a mad woman. To control her before she got herself killed, Arya pulled out a note Vulcan had made for her. It told Stella to fight together as a team, promising to let her hold Tama once if she cooperated. Stella happily accepted the offer immediately and chose to cooperate like a good girl. Just then, a talking red light appeared out of nowhere, telling them to follow her to a treasure hidden nearby. But when they did, Tama and the girls were ambushed by apes that came out of the bushes. With Stella acting as the tank, she took the damage while protecting everyone, and Arya defeated the ape with ease using her speed and daggers. Suddenly, the bushes started moving and talking, asking Tama and the girls not to leave them alone. From the bushes emerged a green-haired creature named Fairy and a pixie named Lily. When Stella asked what they were, Arya explained that they were fairies who lived in forest labyrinths and were usually harmless. The two fairies picked up Tama immediately to show him some love, caressing him from head to toe like they owned him and wanted to make him their pet. This made Stella jealous because she hadn't even been allowed to touch Tama once despite being around him all this time. The fairies explained that they just wanted to be friends with Tama, and to show their hospitality, they revealed a treasure box they had hidden. Inside, Arya found a beautiful potion that looked valuable. They thanked the fairies for the gift, and the fairies informed them that there were more treasures in the labyrinth, but they needed a key located on a tree surrounded by wasps. The team went for it immediately, and despite the wasps' best efforts to sting them, they easily defeated the dumb bugs and retrieved the key without breaking a sweat.
Aether Holy!
Slicing gale!
The fairies told Arya that the key opened the labyrinth's boss room, where the real treasure was hidden. However, not wanting to be reckless and rush into danger, Arya decided they should retreat to the city first to prepare properly. This annoyed the fairies, who wanted Tama and the girls to fight the boss for fun and entertainment. When Arya refused their request, the fairies asked to come with them to the city instead. When they arrived at the city, the fairies were thrilled to see civilization for the first time, but Arya scolded them immediately, warning that as fairies they were rare creatures and people might take advantage of them or try to capture them. Still, the fairies rushed off to eat at a street vendor without paying because they had no concept of money. Arya ended up paying for them but didn't get angry, knowing they had no experience in city life and were just innocent creatures. Later, they showed the potion to Rice, who informed them that it was called the Drop of Truth. Whoever drank it would spill out their deepest secret without being able to stop themselves. Just then, the two fairies barged in without knocking like they had no manners. When Rice saw them, he was startled immediately, quickly changed his tone like he was hiding something, and excused himself without explanation, leaving everyone confused. Later that evening, the girls took a bath together while Tama watched like the lucky cat he was. The girls played hide and seek through the fog, laughing and making happy noises that echoed through the bathroom. Before bed, Stella wanted to cuddle with Tama and hold him close. When he rejected her, Arya, pleased with Stella's good work during the adventure, ordered Tama to let her hold him as a reward. He obeyed reluctantly, and Stella happily caressed him like a doll, finally getting what she wanted. Meanwhile, Vulcan was on her way to back up Arya when a bell rang in the distance. From behind, a skeleton monster attacked her suddenly, but she easily smashed it to pieces with her hammer. She was confused by how weak it was compared to normal monsters, and then noticed someone running away after stalking her from the shadows. Back with Tama and the girls, they returned to the labyrinth and used the key to face the boss, leaving the fairies outside for their safety. Inside, they encountered a huge monster that looked ready to crush them. Stella led the charge as the tank while the others prepared to attack from different angles. Arya almost got crushed by the monster's attack, but Stella protected her just in time with her shield. Encouraging her team to attack while she defended, Stella used her dragon strength to hold the monster in place so it couldn't move. This gave Tama an opening to use his fireball, and he tied up the monster with his skills, allowing Arya to use her speed and blade to finish it off with a clean strike. After the boss fell and turned to dust, a treasure chest appeared in the center of the room. Inside was a scroll written in an ancient text that glowed with power. When Arya read it aloud, her weapon was upgraded into a holy blade that shone with a golden light. When they stepped outside to find the fairies and celebrate their victory, they saw their snacks spilled on the ground like something terrible had happened, and the fairies were gone without a trace. Meanwhile, Rice was seen ringing his bell, the same one Vulcan had heard earlier, and while looking at a picture of his late wife, he quietly asked her to patiently wait for him, hinting that he was planning something mysterious. Back with Tama, he and the girls went looking for the fairies, but when they couldn't find them anywhere, they dragged themselves back to the city feeling defeated. They found Vulcan chilling at the tavern and told her about what happened to the fairies. They were planning to search around the city, but before they could bounce, some creepy old dude appeared out of nowhere demanding their attention. This degenerate glanced at each of the girls' melons like he was shopping for groceries before announcing that the Earl of Gladstone requested their presence at his palace. Arya and Stella were about to tell this fossil to go choke on a footlong, but Vulcan stopped them cold and said they'd accept his invitation. The old man waited for them outside in the carriage. When they asked Vulcan why she accepted, she dropped some tea, telling them there was a rumor that the Earl liked kidnapping pretty girls, and she believed the fairies might have been yoinked by him too. When they arrived at the palace, they met the Earl, who looked like he swallowed a whale, and this absolute unit proudly declared that the girls would now be his lovers. The old servant brought them some tea, and while the Earl insisted they drink it like their lives depended on it, the girls hesitated because they weren't born yesterday. However, Arya drank it anyway while Tama quickly activated his protection magic on all the girls just in case. When none of them passed out face first into the table, the Earl looked confused as hell, wondering why his sketchy drug didn't work. Stella, absolutely done with this nonsense, lifted him up like a sack of potatoes and demanded to know where the fairies were, but Arya calmed her down, telling her not to resort to violence just yet. The Earl started tweaking hard, calling them demons and summoning his guards to attack. While Arya tried to calm everyone down and be the reasonable one, the Earl just wanted these bozos gone. Suddenly, one of his men burst through the doors and announced that the town was being attacked by the undead and they needed to evacuate immediately. The Earl dipped immediately, not giving a single care about his people, but Arya ordered her team to help the townsfolk before they all got absolutely clapped by the undead horde. In town, they helped people evacuate while also taking out the undead left and right as a proper team should. In a dark alleyway, a little girl was about to get murked by a skeleton, but Vulcan swooped in to save her and carried her on her back like a hero. She told Arya and Stella they needed to find whoever summoned these bony idiots, so they decided to split up. Arya and Stella heard a bell ringing in the distance and followed the sound, only to find Rice standing there looking all mysterious and sinister. He was the necromancer mastermind behind this whole mess. He told them he wanted revenge on the Earl for taking his wife's life, then casually summoned an entire army of skeletons like it was no big deal. He revealed he could summon that many because he was draining the fairies' power. And Tama immediately realized the bell was what made the fairies obedient and forced them to help this madman. Rice kept draining more power from the fairies, completely ignoring Arya's desperate pleas to stop and summon the skeleton of the Earth Dragon. Tama and Stella went all in, attacking the dragon skeleton with everything they had. But even though they dealt some solid damage, the thing healed instantly. When Arya attacked using her newly acquired Holy Blade though, she managed to deal damage that actually stuck and didn't regenerate, but it drained most of her energy in the process. Tama told Stella through telepathy that they had to buy Arya some time and save the fairies so she could use her full power without collapsing. Meanwhile, the townspeople were still fighting for their lives when Vulcan showed up with the little girl still safely on her back, ready to give them the backup they desperately needed. Back with Tama, he and Stella unleashed everything they had on the dragon. Using his tentacle skills, Tama managed to free the fairies from their prison and create an opening for Arya to strike. With her holy blade glowing in her hands, Arya charged in at full speed, joined by the others in perfect sync, and together they finished off the dragon skeleton in one final devastating attack. Rice couldn't believe he actually lost. While Arya tried to reason with him and talk him down, he stubbornly refused to stop until the Earl was 6 feet under. But when he rang his bell again desperately, only one skeleton moved toward him this time. It was his dead wife, Eliza, who had been resting peacefully until he disturbed her. She managed to calm him down with her gentle presence and convinced him to atone for his sins before disappearing into the afterlife. All the skeletons vanished with her, crumbling to dust. The next day, the city prepared a guillotine for Rice's punishment. Before the execution, Arya visited the Earl in his chambers. When she casually offered him some tea, he gladly drank it like the degenerate he was, probably thinking he was smooth. Later, the whole town gathered in the square to watch Rice's execution like it was the entertainment event of the year. The Earl, acting all smug and superior, asked Rice about his motive for the attack. Rice declared loudly that he wanted revenge for his wife's death, and suddenly, the Earl blurted out in front of the entire crowd that he really did kill Eliza. He started panicking hard, wondering what the hell was happening to his mouth, but Arya kept pressing him with more questions. The Earl couldn't stop himself from confessing to kidnapping girls from town for his twisted collection, and Arya revealed with a smirk that she had spiked his tea earlier with the drop of truth potion they found in the labyrinth. The townspeople, finally realizing this monster was the reason they had lost their daughters, absolutely beat him senseless right there in the square. Afterward, both the Earl and his creepy right-hand man were thrown into prison to rot, while Rice was spared from execution and got to serve his time in peace, finally able to atone for what he had done. The next morning, the gang headed back to the city of Ruin, but this time they brought the fairies home with them. When they arrived at the guild, Anna and the other adventurers congratulated them for absolutely yeeting the S-ranked undead dragon out of existence, calling them all heroes. Anna then presented them with upgraded adventurer tags, with Arya rising to an A-rank adventurer. However, unlike the others who were hyped about their promotions, Vulcan rejected hers, claiming she preferred the quiet life of hammering metal instead of fighting monsters. Anna also presented them with a massive gift from Gladstone as thanks for exposing the Earl's crimes, which Stella and the fairies got excited to devour immediately. But realizing they all lived in a cramped little room, Tama pointed out they had a serious storage problem because where were they supposed to put all this stuff? Arya suggested that Vulcan keep everything at her place, but she rejected the idea since her home was already stuffed with crafting materials and had little space to spare. Anna then dropped some wisdom, suggesting that since Arya was now an A-ranked adventurer who'd be getting way bigger payments, it was time for her to upgrade from small apartments to a full house like a proper adult. Everyone got super excited as they imagined living in a big place together, and Arya agreed they should go house hunting the very next day. When they visited a realtor, he asked what kind of house they wanted. The group boldly requested a house with a massive bathroom where they could get comfortable, and an even bigger bedroom so they could take turns on Tama's glizzy. The realtor looked slightly disturbed by their enthusiasm, but still took them to check out a mansion near the forest anyway. The group was seriously impressed by the size of the place, but when it came to showing them the bathroom, he shamefully revealed an open-air bath, explaining this was the main reason the house hadn't been sold yet, since most people found it too exposed. However, instead of being turned off by it, the naughty girls absolutely loved the idea, and Arya immediately agreed to buy that house for themselves without hesitation. After helping with the move and getting everything settled in, Stella finally got her long-awaited chance to play with Tama as her reward, and he reluctantly agreed to let her. He ended up stuck between her massive melons, which was probably her plan all along. The next morning, Vulcan popped up at their new place with a bunch of food ingredients as a welcoming gift, and they all cooked together for an incredible feast. After getting their stomachs completely full and satisfied, everyone fell asleep from the food coma, while Tama found himself stuck between the girls, who were clearly dreaming about him doing things that would make the censors sweat. He quietly managed to slip away without waking them. After their previous battle with the undead dragon, Tama decided to check his skills, and to his absolute surprise, his behemoth form had unlocked a 3rd level, which would make him even stronger than before. Suddenly, Stella popped up behind him, also unable to sleep, and asked what he was doing awake at this hour. He initially refused to answer because he knew she'd make it weird, but Stella pressured him relentlessly until he finally gave in and told her. When Tama explained through telepathy that he could now transform into a behemoth even stronger than the one that had defeated her back when she was the Earth Dragon, Stella didn't get scared at all. Instead, she got ridiculously excited and started begging him to transform right there and fill her up with his mighty sausage, even chasing him around the house for it like a maniac. The next morning during breakfast, the fairies asked Arya if they could grow some plants in the garden to make the place look nicer. When Arya agreed without thinking much of it, they used their fairy magic to quickly grow a beautiful tree in seconds. But Vulcan immediately stopped them in panic, informing everyone that what they'd just grown was a world tree, a mythical tree that enriched the soil and created rare minerals worth a fortune. Everyone was absolutely stunned by this revelation. Vulcan quickly instructed them to grow normal trees around it to hide it from anyone who might pass by, which they did immediately. But the World Tree also ended up creating something else unexpected, a life spring, which was water that could heal wounds and cure illnesses like a miracle potion. Although having something that valuable around was incredibly dangerous and could attract the wrong kind of attention, the party decided to keep it a secret from everyone outside their group. They seriously warned the fairies to be extra careful going forward, since kidnappers and criminals might target them specifically for their crazy powers if word got out. The group then discussed their newly acquired materials, and while Vulcan wanted to dig up the rare minerals buried under the tree to craft some legendary gear, she revealed that she couldn't actually do it herself. Only artifact smiths possess the skill to extract such precious materials, and unfortunately, she wasn't one of them. Just then, Anna burst into their house, carrying news of a new mission. He informed them that a powerful monster had suddenly appeared on the first level of the labyrinth, which wasn't even supposed to be their assigned floor, and he desperately needed adventurers to take care of it before things got worse. The others immediately agreed to go handle it, but the fairies hesitated nervously, worried they'd just be a burden to the team in a real fight. Tama reassured them kindly that he would protect them no matter what, which gave them the confidence boost they needed to come along. Inside the dungeon, the fairies showed off their brand new armor that Vulcan had crafted for them. They first encountered some weak goblins lounging around, which they easily demolished with their mid-range magic attacks, proving to be a perfect addition to the team's formation. Suddenly, they all heard a terrifying growl echoing through the corridors that made everyone tense up. When they investigated cautiously, they found an A-rank troll standing there looking absolutely massive. But Stella immediately noticed something strange about the situation. The troll looked genuinely scared of something instead of aggressive. Before the team could launch their attack, Arya asked Tama specifically not to interfere this time around. After all their past battles where he'd saved them repeatedly, she wanted to properly test her own strength and prove she'd grown stronger. Tama agreed to stay back and watch. The fairies began their coordinated attack with magic blasts, but it only succeeded in making the troll angry instead of afraid. It retaliated fiercely with devastating swings, but Stella blocked the heavy attack perfectly with her massive shield, creating the perfect opening for the rest of the party. Everyone moved together in flawless sync, ending with Arya using her sacred blades in a beautiful strike to finish the monster off cleanly. After confirming that the entire floor was now clear of threats, they returned home feeling accomplished and decided to take a relaxing bath together to celebrate. While soaking in the warm water, the fairies discovered a mysterious hidden button near the edge of the bath. When they curiously pressed it, the water suddenly turned all bubbly, absolutely delighting all the girls. Watching them all laugh and relax so peacefully, Arya told Tama softly that just like the legendary sword Saint Alicia had protected her homeland years ago, she too wanted to protect what mattered most to her now. And Tama genuinely believed she was more than capable of doing exactly that. Meanwhile, far away in the royal capital, a scout urgently warned the king that monsters across the kingdom had been growing unnaturally aggressive recently, likely due to some kind of demonic summoning ritual happening in the shadows. Elsewhere in a training hall, a soldier informed the legendary sword Saint Alicia herself that time was running out faster than expected. She looked up solemnly and declared with conviction that the moment they'd all been preparing for had finally arrived. Anna barged in with news that had everyone's jaws dropping, saying the Emperor wanted to personally meet their ragtag group of misfits. Arya immediately started panicking like she'd been caught stealing cookies, insisting there was no way someone like her deserved an audience with royalty. Anna told her to stop being dramatic because everything would be fine, and Vulcan nodded in agreement, though something in her gut told her this wasn't going to be a simple meet and greet. The following morning, they packed up and embarked on what turned into a multi-day road trip to the capital. When they finally arrived, a squad of fancy palace guards rolled up like they were escorting celebrities and led them inside. Everyone was buzzing with excitement about meeting the big boss himself, but Vulcan had gone oddly silent, which definitely raised some red flags. Inside the throne room, they came face to face with Emperor Geisel and his chief knight, Julius, who looked like he bench-pressed mountains for fun. What really caught Arya off guard was when the Emperor greeted Vulcan by name before anyone introduced her. Julius then proceeded to expose Vulcan's entire backstory, revealing she'd been one of the legendary heroes during the Ragnarok War and even earned the ultra-rare title of Artifact Smith. But Vulcan just shrugged it off, saying she'd rather spend her days making regular swords in a quiet shop than being famous. Right when everyone was processing this, a portal ripped open in the middle of the room. Out stepped Beelzebub, the holy demon lord who apparently switched teams and joined humanity's side. Arya started getting all nervous, but before she could even form a proper sentence, Beelzebub straight up hacked into her brain and read her thoughts. Julius had to tell her to chill with the mind invasion, and then Beelzebub got down to business. Turns out, some group of demonic idiots called the Four Fiends were plotting to bring back Mammon, one of the big bad demon lords, along with his entire army of nightmares. Tama's mind immediately flashed back to that scuffle with Beryl, and he knew this was about to be way above their pay grade. Still, the whole squad agreed to help because that's what heroes do, and Emperor Geisel thanked them for their willingness to help. Time for the mission assignments. Julius looked at Vulcan and said he needed her to forge some god-tier weapons and threw every resource imaginable at her. The fairies got shipped off to train with Beelzebub, probably to unlock their inner magical girls. Stella was paired up with Julius himself for some combat training that would hopefully teach her to think before she punched. But for Arya, Julius had something special cooking. He took her to this fancy, secluded mansion, and who should appear but this absolutely stacked blonde elf that made Arya's eyes water instantly. It was Alicia, the legendary sword saint who had rescued her when she was just a scared youngin'. Alicia remembered that day too. But when Arya introduced Tama as her elemental cat buddy, Alicia gave him the side eye and suggested maybe someone else should handle Arya's training. But Arya wasn't having it. She admitted that training with Alicia had been her dream forever, and that's all it took for the elf to smile and accept. Training kicked off, and Arya was gripping her blades like her life depended on it. Alicia pulled out a basic wooden training sword, and the moment she got serious, the pressure she gave off was so intense that Arya literally started seeing death scenarios playing in her head. Still, she charged in with everything she had. Alicia dodged her attacks, but then announced that Arya passed the test. While this was happening, Vulcan was in her workshop absolutely cooking up weapons so legendary that even the veteran smiths were standing there shocked. The fairies were with Beelzebub, who had them reading books while she analyzed their mana levels. Stella was getting bodied by Julius, who wasn't even trying. He tripped her mid-fight and told her she needed to start using her brain cells. When break time finally came, Vulcan showed up and gave Alicia the biggest hug, revealing they were actually tight. Arya noticed the chemistry and asked about it. Then Alicia explained they met way back when the Great Mage took her under his wing. Then Alicia started going full fangirl mode, squealing about how amazing the Great Mage was and basically dragging Arya to the bath so she could continue gushing about her master. During the group bath later, Beelzebub casually dropped the nuclear bomb that both she and Alicia were married to the Great Mage. Everyone froze. Then Stella burst into the bath declaring she wanted the same arrangement with Tama, and suddenly all the girls were arguing about who'd be wife number one, but Tama was just there concerned for his willy. Dinner was this hamburger steak that Alicia whipped up, and she mentioned the recipe came from the Great Mage who was apparently from some mysterious place called Japan that nobody had heard of. That night, Tama couldn't sleep and went for a moonlit walk. Alicia materialized out of nowhere and asked him to look after everyone when things got rough. Then she hit him with the revelation that she'd known he was a behemoth this whole time, but kept it on the low. Tama was shook, but grateful she had his back. Next day, training continued. Julius was sparring with Stella when he noticed she'd been protecting something the entire time, a nest of eggs underneath her. He apologized for not catching it sooner and then dropped some wisdom on her. He told Stella that Arya needed reasons to get stronger, but Stella? She was already strong because she just acted on instinct, always throwing herself into danger to protect others. That was real strength, and she needed to remember that. By the end of the training arc, everyone had leveled up their skills except Arya, who was still stuck. She begged Alicia to keep training her, but Beelzebub showed up with bad news, saying training time was over. Back at the palace, Beelzebub laid it all out. The four fiends had popped up in different locations. 2 were being handled by other squads, but the remaining 2 were their problem now. One had appeared in Alicia's homeland, and even though she'd been retired, she immediately volunteered to go defend her people. She also revealed that the other one had showed up in Ruin, which was way too close to where Arya's family lived. Arya's face went serious, but she didn't flinch. She stood up and declared they were going to obliterate these demons and protect everyone, no matter what. A while later, the group finally arrived at the labyrinth where one of the four fiends was supposedly hiding like a coward. They had backup from another party tagging along, and when they ventured inside, the first few chambers were packed with low-level trash mobs that looked like free experience points. After all that brutal training they'd been through, Arya and the crew were itching to flex their new powers and test out the shiny artifacts Vulcan had cooked up for them. Arya was slicing through enemies with her sacred blades. Stella transformed into an absolute tank that nothing could penetrate, and the fairies were nuking everything with their magic spells. Together, they steamrolled through the weaker foes like it was nothing. As they pushed deeper into the labyrinth, the monsters got significantly beefier. The support team told Julius and Arya's squad to focus purely on hunting demons while they handled the small fries. The heroes pressed forward and eventually stumbled upon a completely shattered door, which was definitely giving off bad vibes. Stella's dragon senses started tingling like crazy, sensing danger ahead. So Tama stepped up and activated some buffs to protect everyone before they continued. Inside the chamber, they came face to face with Vasago, one of the notorious Four Fiends, and this dude could smell their heroic aura from a mile away. With a sinister smirk, he summoned two monstrous beasts named Cyclops and Orthrus, ordering them to unalive the heroes while he dipped back to the demon realm. However, Julius wasn't having any of that and blocked his escape route, insisting that the heroes handle the summoned monsters while he dealt with Vasago personally. The battle kicked off, and things were looking decent at first. Tama and Arya tag-teamed Orthrus while Stella and the others ganged up on Cyclops. But then, reality hit hard because Vasago turned out to be way too overpowered for Julius. With a single devastating strike of dark magic, he sent Julius flying into unconsciousness like he was a rag doll. Vasago took advantage of the chaos and buffed his minions, making them even deadlier before vanishing back to the demon realm, leaving the monsters to finish the job. The heroes were getting absolutely bodied by the overwhelming force, and Tama watched as his determined elf master was in serious danger. He had no choice but to transform into his formidable third behemoth form, revealing his true power. Meanwhile, in a completely different labyrinth, Alicia was speed-running through monsters like they were tutorial enemies. She eventually encountered another fiend who was casually bathing without a care in the world. Alicia recognized this demon as one she had unalived years ago, and when the fiend declared that Alicia could never beat her again, she transformed into a dragon. But Alicia wasn't impressed. She effortlessly sliced off the creature's head in seconds, ending the fight before it even started. Back with Tama, everyone was absolutely shocked seeing him transform into his massive behemoth form. But instead of freaking out and running away, they looked at him with reverence, seeing him as a holy beast and a force of nature, rather than something evil. The monsters, however, realized they were completely outmatched and decided to sacrifice their own life forces in a desperate kamikaze attempt to take Tama down. Orthrus unleashed a barrage of hellfire at him, forcing Tama to counter and hold the attack at bay. But while he was defending, this left him wide open for the Cyclops to land a devastating blow that would definitely send him to the afterlife. At that critical moment, Stella stepped forward with her massive shield. Vulcan warned her that she might not survive this, but Stella accepted the risk without hesitation, ready to die for her friends. In a display of determination, she activated her full draconic power and looked around at everyone, declaring her love for each one of them. She recalled her lonely past as a dragon trapped in darkness until Tama killed her, a death that led to her rebirth as a human and the happiest days of her life alongside Tama and the crew. Back in the present, when the Cyclops' attack finally struck, she held it back with her shield, slowly succumbing to the immense pressure. Arya, watching from the sidelines, refused to sit there while her friend died for them, so she awakened her sacred armor, a special skill that purified the entire area and obliterated their enemies in one go. After the battle wrapped up, the group was celebrating their hard-won victory when Tama suddenly felt his mana spiraling out of control. In an instant, he reverted back to his small kitty form and collapsed right onto Arya's melons. Overcome with emotion, Arya hugged Stella tightly while cradling Tama between their massive assets, both of them deeply moved by everything that had just happened. Meanwhile, Vasago, the fiend responsible for all this chaos, sensed that his monsters had been defeated. Though he could hardly believe the humans managed to pull it off, he wasn't ready to throw in the towel and was already plotting his next move. Back at the castle, the Emperor congratulated the heroes on their victory and told them they did an amazing job. However, his expression turned grim as he informed them that, according to some ancient prophecy, Vasago was destined to lead the demon army straight to the elves' homeland. Arya immediately understood what was happening, knowing that Vasago's real target was the Philosopher's Stone. Alicia confirmed this, explaining that the fiend planned to use the stone to resurrect the demon lord and bring about total chaos. Unwilling to let such a catastrophe happen, Arya and her crew made up their minds right there. They were going to journey to the elven homeland and stop Vasa Aggo at all costs, no matter what stood in their way. On the road to the elven homeland, Arya's mind kept wandering back to the nightmare of when demons tore through Luminous. She remembered how terrified she'd been as a kid until Leo, the elemental cat, and Alicia, the sword saint, showed up to save everyone. Even now, thinking about her homeland facing another attack made her anxious as heck, but Tama and the squad immediately hyped her up, reminding her they had her back no matter what. Out of nowhere, Anna appeared looking like Barbie, but everyone knew he was there for nothing else other than to see Captain Cedric. Then Alicia appeared and gave Arya a confidence boost, pointing out that she wasn't that scared girl anymore. She'd unlocked Excalibur, a skill so powerful Arya could break it out if things got dicey. When they finally reached Lumines, they were greeted by this absolutely massive sacred tree that looked like it had been standing there since the dawn of time. Arya explained that this ancient guardian had been protecting the elves longer than anyone could remember. The elven chief Elven welcomed them with open arms, thanking Alicia profusely for saving them back in the day. Alicia quickly steered the conversation toward the important stuff, like making sure the village's defenses weren't trash. Elven mentioned he'd called in reinforcements from nearby villages, led by this badass Amazon warrior named Gusiona, who wore an eye patch like she'd seen some serious combat. Stella was immediately impressed and nudged Tama, whispering that this woman was definitely someone you didn't want to mess with. As they walked through the village, the elves went absolutely wild cheering for Arya, celebrating her homecoming like she was a celebrity. Meanwhile, the fairies got distracted by how gorgeous everything looked and wandered off to explore the forest because they had the attention span of goldfish. There, they bumped into a knight named Fionn and her elemental cat Leo, who demanded to know who these tiny intruders were. Arya and the others caught up just in time, and when Arya spotted Fionn, she greeted her warmly, mentioning how long it had been. After the fairies got a gentle scolding for running off, something hilarious happened. Tama's intimidating aura made Leo immediately roll over and show his belly in submission, which completely shocked Fionn since Leo had always been a proud and dignified cat. Realizing Leo was the legendary elemental cat who'd saved Arya years ago, Tama returned the gesture and rolled over too in a show of mutual respect. Later, Arya attended a war council with the village leaders. Julius was stressing hard about whether their defenses would hold, but Elven calmly assured everyone that the village was properly fortified against demons, and having the Amazons as backup would tip the scales in their favor. Arya was surprised, admitting she had no idea the Amazons even had an organized military unit. Elven revealed it had been formed just last year, and then dropped a bombshell that the captain was Arya's own mother, Leona. Arya's jaw hit the floor. Leona explained that after Arya left home, she discovered during training that she was ridiculously overpowered and decided to lead the Amazons herself. While the meeting dragged on, Stella and the others waited outside when some nervous villagers approached, asking if the rumors about their strength were true. Vulcan tried to reassure them, but Stella cut in, saying the real powerhouse was Tama. Back inside, Elven took the group to see the Philosopher's Stone. They arrived at another towering sacred tree where a hidden entrance revealed itself. Elven stationed the Amazon warriors as guards while the main squad ventured inside. Alicia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Gusiona's vibe. When they reached the Philosopher's Stone, everyone stood there in awe of its sheer size and power. Elven demonstrated with a stick that the stone was protected by a barrier so strong they could focus entirely on the battle instead of babysitting it. Afterward, Arya brought everyone to her childhood home, and Vulcan finally understood where Arya got her legendary melons from because it clearly ran in the family. Leona offered to cook a feast for the whole crew, but before they ate, Arya asked to speak with her mom privately. Later, mother and daughter shared an emotional moment in the bath, with Tama happily joining them. Despite the wholesome moment, Arya admitted she was worried about her mom fighting in the upcoming battle, but Leona gently reminded her that she'd always watched over her and believed in her dreams. Her strength came from wanting to protect their home, the same way she'd always protected Arya. Tama chimed in, promising to keep Leona safe, and she gave him affectionate pets that made him melt. Touched by their bond, Arya finally agreed to let her mom fight alongside them, and they shared a warm hug while Tama was sandwiched between the two sets of legendary pillows. That night, while Arya slept peacefully, Tama tried sneaking out of her grip. Arya mumbled something in her sleep about how his beast form could give her a proper clapping if he wanted to, shocking Tama as he wondered the heck she was dreaming about. Nearby, Leona was still awake and thanked Tama for always protecting her daughter, mentioning that Arya wrote about him constantly in her letters home. She begged him to continue keeping Arya safe, and Tama made a solemn vow that he'd dedicate his entire life to protecting her. But while this was on, some shady business was going down elsewhere. Gusiona, who'd secretly been planning to betray the elves this whole time, tried making her move only for Alicia to appear out of the shadows and confront her directly, calling her out as a demon spy. And before Gusiona could do anything, Alicia cut her down in one clean strike. However, what Alicia didn't notice was Gusiona's pet owl watching everything, and it immediately flew off to snitch to Vasaago about the Philosopher's Stone's exact location. Minutes later, Vasaago ripped open a portal and unleashed an entire demon army on the village. All hell broke loose as they started blasting everything in sight. Alicia reacted instantly, throwing up a massive magical barrier that pushed back the demonic assault and blocked their attacks. In the chaos, Julius rallied the troops with an epic speech that would make motivational speakers jealous and ordered everyone to defend the village entrances. The soldiers split up to cover all the access points. And before the real fighting started, Tama blessed his entire squad with the Lion King's blessing, buffing their defenses so they could take whatever punishment was coming their way. The team immediately went on the offensive against the demons. Vulcan was swinging her hammer, while Stella tanked every hit, and the fairies were slinging their spells. Combined with Arya's insane speed and Tama's arsenal of attacks, they managed to hold the line. At the other gates, everyone was fighting like their lives depended on it, including Anna, who was casting ice magic in his fabulous robe like he was auditioning for a magical girl anime. When some demon tried to backstab him, Cedric swooped in to save his lover from getting unalived. The couple then combined their powers through the sheer force of love and started nuking every enemy in sight. On another front, some demons surrounded Leona, probably thinking she was just some weak elf blessed with massive melons. But this was a big mistake, as she blasted them away with a remote punch that sent them flying into next week, proving she was absolutely built different. Vasaago watched his army getting bodied from afar and calmly summoned this massive beast before mounting it. The beast took to the skies, and with one devastating attack, it pierced straight through Alicia's defense barrier. The army tried shooting it down, but the beast just casually destroyed their weapons, forcing Julius to order a tactical retreat before they all got wiped. Despite the chaos, Alicia stayed calm and put all her faith in Arya and Tama to handle this. With the beast dominating the sky, Tama decided it was time to level the playing field by transforming into his behemoth form. Arya hopped on his back and they took off after Vasaago. Initially, they kept pace with the demon, but Vasaago wasn't just strong, he was smart. He opened a portal mid-flight to blindside Tama, nearly hitting Arya in the process. The distraction worked perfectly, giving Vasaago the opening he needed to charge straight into the sacred tree and make a beeline for the Philosopher's Stone. Tama recovered quickly and gave chase, but Vasaago was already facing the barrier protecting the stone. Using his beast's brute strength, he smashed through the barrier and successfully seized the stone. By the time Tama and Arya arrived, it was already too late. The beast swallowed the stone whole, sending shockwaves rippling throughout the entire city as the sacred tree began withering and dying before their eyes. Vasaago tried to dip, but Arya wasn't about to let him escape. She latched onto the beast, refusing to give up even when things looked hopeless, because if Vasaago should escape, it was the end. Vasaago opened another portal back to his realm, laughing maniacally and declaring that the Demon King's resurrection was finally at hand. Tama wanted to attack immediately, but he hesitated because Arya was still clinging to the beast. Just before they flew through the portal, Arya looked Vasaago dead in the eye and told him he would never win against the power of friendship. Then, in an absolutely insane move, she deliberately let go and started free-falling, giving Tama the perfect opening to strike without worrying about hitting her. Tama launched a massive fire attack, and Vasaago's beast countered with its own flames, but Tama's attack was on another level. As he began overpowering it, Arya seized her moment and unleashed her ultimate skill, Excalibur, sending Vasaago straight to the Shadow Realm. With their leader defeated, the remaining demons retreated back to whatever hole they crawled out of. Tama caught Arya mid-fall like the hero he was and retrieved the Philosopher's Stone. She smiled at him, saying she always knew he'd be there to catch her. That night, the entire city went absolutely crazy, celebrating their victory with a massive feast and an all-night party. In recognition of everything they'd accomplished, Alicia suggested that Arya and Tama be granted heroic titles. She officially named them the Sacred Blade and the Sacred Beast, which brought tears to Arya's eyes because her dream to save people had finally come true. Leona and the rest of the crew congratulated them, celebrating the birth of brand new legends who would go down in history. When the group finally returned home, they received a hero's welcome with Arya as the main attraction. Everyone wanted to meet the sacred blade and celebrate with her. Later that night, following their usual routine, the group took a communal bath together. After witnessing just how big Tama could get in his behemoth form, all the girls started fighting over him, asking him to paint their walls white. As they continued their adventures going forward, Tama genuinely loved the life he now had. He was content staying beside his master as an adorable elf cat who was secretly an S-rank behemoth. If you enjoyed this recap, clap the like button and comment elf plot in the comment section. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel for more plot-filled adventures like this one.